Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Meno Lounge. I'm Julie Gordon-White, CEO of Meno Menopause Energy and Protein Bars. And before we bring on our fabulous Dr. Jessica Shepard today, I just have to tell you, I'm getting so many emails. Julie, where is the peanut butter? Where is the peanut butter? Oh my goodness, you guys, I had no idea you guys love this so much. Well, we knew you did because you keep selling it out. So we've got about 3 more weeks to go. I wish I could just go in my kitchen and make it up for you, but I can't, and you probably wouldn't like it anyway. So it's coming. Stay the course and eat the blueberry. It's summer. It's so good. I'm enjoying it so much on yogurt. I used to be a peanut butter Meno bar every day, and now I'm eating blueberry. So diversify your gut biome. All right, let me see if I can find our amazing guest here and bring her up. All right, Dr. Jessica. She and I have been working so hard to match up dates here. Let's see. Put your questions in the chat that you might have for her about living longer and stronger. I love that. Okay, talk amongst yourselves. Dr. Jessica. All right, let's see if I can find you. No doctor ahead. Jessica first. Okay. Here soon. This is the fun part about having doctors. You never know if they have a patient right before, or if you're Dr. Jessica, she might be on television right now. No idea. So I'm super excited to have her. If you haven't already, make sure that you get a copy of her book, Generation M. I think it was one of the very first books talking about perimenopause. And perimenopause is, I hate to say having a moment, it's just like the real thing. So, well, she was always there. We just didn't acknowledge her as the beginning. So I'm loving that Jessica really launched that conversation in my world. All right, let me see if I can grab her again. Where in the world is Dr. Jessica? All right, Dr. Jessica, I just sent you another invitation. So let me see if you've put any questions or comments down here. Jessica, if you are there, it says you are unable to join, but I do see that occasionally, and I know it's not true. So let's see if I can grab you again. Just sent you another invite. I know you do this on the regular, so.
There I am.
There you are.
Hi.
Hi. I knew you
How are
would be
you
wearing
doing?
like some tankety tank thing, and you're in Dallas, and
Yeah.
you're in Dallas, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's like 50
Oh
degrees
my
here.
God. It is 50 times 2 here.
A little bit, I'll give you some and you give me some, and I think somewhere in the middle
Yeah,
is
summer
perfect, right?
would be
How
great.
are you, Dr.
I'm
Jessica?
good. I'm so good. It's good to see you. I mean, we were just in person a few months ago, and so now it's good to catch up virtually.
Yes, at Let's Talk Menopause
Yeah,
event. It was amazing. You did a great job, and then we had a fun lunch afterward. That
we
was
did.
really
It
good.
was the executive
That's
meeting.
right. We called the board meeting.
Yeah,
Everybody showed up.
yeah.
Bing, bang, boom. It was terrific. Well, I'm super excited to finally have you on since we've been trying
I
to
know.
match up schedules. I know everyone knows you, but let's give your
They
due
may
here.
not. There are probably a lot of people who do not know who
How
I
is that even possible? But just in case, you are Dr. Jessica Shepard. You are an expert in longevity, but first you got there because you're a certified, board certified
Yeah.
OBGYN, specializing in women's health,
Hmm.
menopause, longevity,
Yeah.
can be seen on every television show talking about all the things all the time. You are an author of a great book called
Yes.
Generation M. Did you have your copy here? Okay, good. I was looking all over for mine. I'm like, I must.
I brought your copy here. It's here with
Thank
you.
you. I am
Mhm.
so
Yes.
glad because you know what? I get books and then I give them away because I
Good. You
know I'm going to
should.
get another one
Yes.
somewhere. So I'm glad you have your cover. So, but also you're an entrepreneur too. You're just,
Yeah.
and your mom
Yes.
and your wife
Yes.
And you do
All of the above.
all of you. And do you sleep?
There are some times that I do sleep. I will say, even as a longevity expert, I like prioritize sleep. Am I perfect at it? No, this is a work in progress.
Right.
But I definitely have learned to understand sleep health differently than I did before. I think before I was just like, you sleep when you die and we got to get cram everything in. And now I really do try and get as much as I can get done. And really, when it comes to sleep time, is like prioritizing it.
It's huge. I know. I just don't think as well without it. So
Yeah.
it's like my secret thing. But I want to go right into something that you say, which I love, is that stepping into this
Hmm.
perimenopause phase of life and menopause is it's our most vibrant chapter.
Hmm.
And how did you get to that? I mean, I believe that, but a lot of women don't,
Yeah.
and they really struggle with that idea. So tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind thinking that way.
Yeah, when I think of this next chapter and just kind of bringing it back to like midlife, perimenopause, menopause, that whole time frame in a woman's life is really the ability to project that next chapter. And I don't think it was ever framed that way. It was just kind
Mhm.
of like it was this long drawn out continuum of life. And then as we get into older, it's just going to like drag and be horrible. But really, this transition allows us to be vibrant by one, having the autonomy,
Mhm.
being able to have more wisdom, but also understanding that our body is going to go through this process biologically. Like it's like we can't change it. This is what our bodies do, and it's a beautiful thing that your bodies do, albeit some of the symptoms are not so friendly. Is that when you look at it like kind of in a composite way, it really is the ability for you to do something differently and to take that autonomy and saying, I'm going to do this transition differently. And I don't think we ever thought of it that way. It was just kind of like this aged thing that is not becoming better. It's just getting
Right.
older. And I completely disagree with that. And so when I talk about perimenopause and menopause, and especially in the book, like I really wanted to transpire that in the book in a way where people say, I get to do this emotionally, physically, I get to do it mentally, sexually. I get to like reframe.
Absolutely. I believe, and Menowell is all about this is the best time of
Yeah.
our lives. But you bring up something in the book, and you're out in the world talking about it, is lifestyle, but you
Mhm.
lead with cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yes.
CBT,
Yes.
which I don't think we talk about enough. So I
Hmm.
love, love, love that you present that as a
Yeah.
way to help navigate, because we can share all these ideas, and we're going to talk more about lifestyle and the levers to pull. But
Hmm.
if we don't have the mindset to
Yes.
receive it, to believe it, to implement it, we can't get there. We can't get
No,
there. So tell
absolutely.
us, talk about CBT and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
CBD,
You're
CBT.
you're like CBT, not D. But cognitive behavioral therapy, and it kind of falls under the umbrella of mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, how we assess this portion of our life. Because if you think about it, your body really is this beautiful thing, but it really does carry out the commands of what the mind says. And so as you go through that transition and your hormones start to change, how we feel about ourselves start to change, how we look and how we see ourselves physically starts to change. A lot of that messaging goes on up here. And if for so long, in the previous 40 plus years, we have been conditioned, a lot of that has to do with social conditioning, messaging, religion may play a part, ethnicity, family culture plays a part in how we view ourselves and think of ourselves. So that carries out into then what our body does, right? And so I think that as the hormones change, we have again this opportunity to saying, how am I going to reshift the mind and the mindset in order to carry out these new ways in which I want to do this next half of my life? Because it's not easy. It's not, just like abracadabra. I think that you should just one day say, I want to do all these changes, and magically your body and your mind are just going to be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to do that. That is why the mindset, cognitive behavioral therapy is so important, because then we have to teach ourselves how to do that. Again, we can't just like come up with it and then do it and execute it. We have to be able to change the neurons and how they fire and how they are conditioned, and the thought processes we have are really a big part in what our body will then carry out. And so I think that the mindset was a big part of the book, but it's also how I've really revolutionized, even in my life going through this, whether it's with hormonal changes, personal changes, career changes, relationship, is you have to ideally do a shift up here. And
Hmm.
once you're able to do that, then you're able to change every day, your routine, your habits, and unlearning also a lot of things that you may have done in the past.
Yeah. And it also it helps build resilience as
Oh
we
yeah.
go through the journey and are experiencing all of these different aspects. Let's just go for the low-hanging fruit of hot flashes,
Yeah, right?
how we can receive it as a horrible thing, or okay, this is interesting. My body's talking to me right now. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to take my jacket off. But so
And
we
maybe my
have,
clothes.
and all the rest of my clothes. But it teaches us tools. Can you talk about some of the tools that maybe do you need to go to a therapist to learn CBT, or is there a way that
Yeah,
there's some tools we can
technically
do
for
our own?
cognitive behavioral therapy, because it is a process and a way of doing it that you have to one learn and then usually be guided through in the ways and how to actually learn the technique to do it. But anything that has to do with mindfulness or mindset really requires time and patience
Mm.
and grace with yourself as well. I think that the time and patience is probably the hardest part of it because your brain, which is really smart, which is why it's the brain, is categorically loves routine. It loves habit. And so for you to change that and change, for example, hot flash, let's take that example back again, is okay, yes, this is a physical thing that which is very, very horrible for some people because it's severe, but the mindset and how you actually get through it and navigate through it, one obviously can be done if you're on hormone replacement therapy. That's a beautiful way to do that, or medications that are not hormone based that actually help with hot flashes. But also there are a lot of people, whether they're taking those modalities or not, are still able to amplify the decrease or the resolution of that symptom with their mindset. And so
Mm.
there are a lot of people who, whether they choose to or not take hormone replacement therapy or medications, are actually able to mitigate or kind of decrease the severity of hot flashes with mindset. So, again, gearing into as I'm going through this, how am I going to do, say, a body scan or being able to name your emotion of what you're feeling as you're going through that? Breath work is also an important part of that. So, it's a lot of different modalities under just the kind of the therapy, CBT, working with mindfulness, meditation, breath work, all of that really kind of herald this nice compartment of how we get through this next part of our lives, symptom wise, but also emotionally and mentally, because a lot of women go through increased anxiety and or depression, which has to do with the hormone shift. Actually, it's not all in your head and it's not your fault.
Right.
These are things that are going on. Is how to honor that,
Mm.
how to work through it, name it, so that you can again get into that next part of your life in a way that feels good to you.
I love that because in addition to all the ways our body is feeling,
Mm-hmm.
we've got potentially changes at work because of where
Yep.
we are in midlife. We have kids. I know
Mm-hmm.
you have kids, I
Mm-hmm.
have kids, and we can be experiencing all kinds of things or pressures or stresses
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
There's so many things, or with parents potentially. So
Yeah.
there's so many things that add on to the experience. So whether you decide to take hormone replacement therapy, for me, I did a lifestyle approach
Mm-hmm.
all the way to
Yeah.
59, and then I'm like, okay, give me some progesterone, I need to sleep.
You're like,
I'm
let's
gonna.
let's do some. Yeah, and I think that that's important too. I'm so glad that you shared your experience because we are hearing a lot about hormone replacement therapy. I'm a huge advocate for hormone replacement therapy, and that's what I, ideally present to my patients. But I also present it in a way that they get to decide what that journey looks like, right? So, with all the information they have on hormone replacement therapy, how are you ideally going to work that into your life, whether it's because you have concern or hesitancy, or whether, like you're just like, I'm going to try and do it this way through lifestyle and see how far I can get. Or if you're someone who's just like, I'm going to immediately do it. All of those still get credit in how they're doing their menopause journey. And so I really like to make that distinction because sometimes what you can feel or hear in this time frame is like you have to do it one way or the other. And if you don't do it a certain way, then you're bad. And I don't
Right.
like narratives of like absolutes of like good, bad, black, white. No, there's so much gray area in the middle.
No judgment,
Yeah.
right? we're
Yeah.
all different,
Yeah.
and while we have commonalities in the experience and
Hmm.
transition, we go through it in a different way.
Yeah.
So we need to leave space for all of that. You know, it made me think the other day about having a baby, and having an epidural. So, you know,
Oh, I was like, are you telling us something? Are you
are you
debuting that you're
kidding?
having a
Shoot
baby?
me. Shoot me. That's not even funny.
You're
Okay,
like,
my kids are
you're like, why am
32.
I laughing? This is not funny.
My husband would leave me like, what? Are you
He's like,
crazy?
I'm out. I'm out.
No, thank you. I have to come back in my body now
Right.
after that comment. Okay. Whew. I'm waiting for a grandchild. That's what I'm waiting for. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're waiting
What
for.
was I
You were
talking
talking about
about again?
the epidural.
Okay. Okay.
After I was like, is she trying to tell me something? We're talking about the epidural.
No, but how, how women, you know, want to give natural childbirth,
Hmm.
so no epidural, and then others are like, poke me in the spine as soon as while I'm having this contraction as quickly as possible because I don't need to have this experience to have
Right,
a
right.
beautiful experience. I was on the poke me in the spine thing, you know, and so why we can create so much judgment around these decisions versus this is a tool you get to decide if is it for you or not for
Yeah.
you. And so I'm starting to think about the choices around HRT
Hmm.
and how we brand them,
Yes.
if you will, is kind of in that same way that
We've done it a lot with women, and I think this categorically goes to how we treat women ideally as if they have to choose one or the other.
right,
So, for example, breastfeeding, bottle feeding,
right,
C-section, vaginal, epidural,
yes,
no epidural. I mean, I think we have done that so many times in women's health.
yes,
And I really am trying to not have that happen again in the menopause space because it's such an important time frame for women. And anyway, we shouldn't be doing that. But I think as we start to gain more traction with understanding menopause, the science behind it, how it leads to maybe long-term morbidities and diseases in the future, and then also from a longevity
mm,
standpoint, like how do you want to do this next part of your life in a well-spanned way? I don't want it to be categorized and you can only do it this way or this way. Yeah.
right. I love that. And I love that you said well span. We're going to talk about longevity
Yeah.
and those things in a second. But when you wrote Generation M, you were in
Yes.
perimenopause at the time. You
Yes.
still are in
And still am.
perimenopause. It's still are, right? It's a
It
long
is.
journey. And so are you noticing? I think you were one of the first books, one of the first doctors really talking about
Yeah.
perimenopause, that, you know, before all the peris and the posts were all lumped together, one big happy
Mm-hmm.
family, and then the nuance and really recognizing the way women experienced the transition early on, because I know I was terrified. I
Yeah.
thought I was having
Yeah.
some dementia or something. And so tell me how you got to that, and why did why do you think perimenopause now seems to be having I hate to say a moment, I hate it when people
I
say
know.
that,
Right.
but now
Right.
it's coming to the
It's here.
forefront. We're talking about her a lot
Yeah,
now.
I think
Yeah.
it goes in the kind of auspice of we were talking about menopause a lot because clinically, right? Clinically, the term
Mm,
really had to do with, okay, now you're diagnosed as that, right? So can you see how we were like, okay, now a woman is menopausal, and our treatment standards used to go by that clinical definition, and then we would say, okay, now you can have hormone replacement therapy. And so as I started to see more of my patients in my practice and hearing the stories, the perimenopausal time frame, being a doctor that really focuses a lot on lifestyle meds or medicine rather, is I said, well, why would I waste all this time of when women are going through this transition, which can be anywhere from 3 to 7 to even 10 years of
right,
perimenopause,
right,
just to wait until they kind of reach like this, like finished, finish line goalpost of menopause.
right.
And then the science started to, I really think, like, in the last 5 to 7 years, we started seeing the menopause science and data, which clearly showed that if we could pay attention before we actually hit menopause, that's where we could make some of the greatest change
Mm,
when we think of mindset of being like, I'm having symptoms, I don't know how to deal with them, I'm not quite menopausal, I can still maybe get pregnant. That is the best time to shift all of these things that will take time,
mm,
right? Because no one very rarely will change overnight. So what if I give them the ability to make those changes before they hit menopause, so that one, the transition is not as jarring. Two, we've already started to talk about
Yeah.
it. So it's not this like scary situation where we're like, you haven't had your period for 12 months. Do you know what that means? Like scary.
Like,
And
ah,
then and
yeah,
then from the perspective of like disease prevention alone,
right.
that to me categorically was like, oh my gosh, we may start to see down the line in 60s, 70s, and 80s women having a decrease in heart disease, dementia, frailty with osteoporosis. So I really like kind of clung to that, and I was like, this is where it is. This is where it is.
I love that. Start early. My daughter is 26, and even my sons, but especially my
Yeah.
daughter and her cohort of friends. I always talk to them about the whole menopause, perimenopause, post journey, and they're so curious.
Yeah.
They are interested, and I think that's part of what, for me, being of the post generation, I'm at the end of Gen X, like hanging on by like one little 5 seconds. That's our work because we missed
Yeah.
out mostly.
Hmm.
We're just getting the tail end, but our work is to educate these younger women
Right.
so they can
Yeah.
just kind of slide on in, and just like she had a little period pouch in her backpack, she'll
I
already have
know.
her little perimenopause pouch, mental pouch, and not be afraid when it happens.
I have a
So
question for you, Julie. Like for people who are coming on from my audience and seeing this, I want you to like give the inspiration as an entrepreneur for your bars, because I think again, like how we frame nutrition, lifestyle, it never was ever devoted to menopausal women. And so
no,
that's what I love that you were able to use, like you just said, like teach, educate behind, the
yeah,
women behind you by using your bars.
yeah. Oh,
So, like,
that's
what was
nice.
that inspiration behind that? Because you are being able to use a platform of nutrition with education and your personal experience to really reach a lot of women. So, that's what I love about what you
Aw,
do as well.
thanks for asking, and that's one entrepreneur to another.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you know, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. And I
Mhm.
think, like you, my mother did not really talk to me about menopause. She had a hysterectomy. And then when I started asking her about it, she's like, oh, no
Yep.
hormone replacement for us. And as
Hmm.
Black women, it's even
Yep.
worse. On, versus the protective benefits that we know now,
Hmm.
around protecting our heart, etc. So I was like, okay, well, if mom says it, then that's
Right.
truth, right?
Exactly.
So I really leaned into a lifestyle approach. And so moving my body more,
Hmm.
walking, exercising, and nutrition. And I really know now and like to share that I believe nutrition is our biggest lever because it's one of the few things that we can actually control
Hmm.
during the menopausal journey and transition. So leaning into, I know we'll talk about protein and fiber.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I just started researching ingredients, things that could help me maybe just calm my body down, feel a little bit
Hmm.
better. But to be honest, the truth was I was craving cookies, brownies, chips, like all the sweet and salty. And then I was like, what can I have? I gained a little over 10 pounds, and I'm
Hmm.
5'1" on a Tuesdays on a good day. And so I had to be able to let that go. I need to shed that. My waist size was too big for my, what is it? About 34 inches or less is where
Right.
we want to be to support our heart health. So that's how I went on the journey. And then I started telling my friends, and they said, that's a great idea, but don't do anything for menopause. Menopause is horrible. Like, what?
All right.
Bing, that's why I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
because we need to shift that. So partnered up. I was coaching women entrepreneurs at the time, and one of my clients was an
Oh, I
OBGYN,
love
Dr. Larissa
it.
Ferdinand. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've met Dr. Larissa, you would love
I
her.
would have
Um,
to meet her. I feel like
she's
I
in
have to meet
Florida.
her.
And so
Yeah.
I'm like, Larissa, does this make sense? She's like, yes, it does. And then my accountant, my CPA said, hey, my sister-in-law is a clinical nutritionist. Talk to her.
Oh my
Barb,
gosh,
does
that's
this make
wonderful.
sense?
Yeah.
She's like, absolutely. So they validated all the research that I had done, and that was it. So
I love that.
here we
Well, I'm so
are.
glad that you did it, because I definitely always have, as much as I travel, I always have your bars.
Oh,
And I love sharing the education behind it, because guess what it does? Not only are you using nutrition as this kind of framework for this part in our lives, but it opens up conversation,
Yes.
right?
Have you ever
Literally
heard me
just
say,
like,
like the bars are like a talking stick?
no, I haven't, but that's exactly what it's done
Yeah.
for me. Because like in the airport, when, oh, you're eating a bar, what's that bar? Oh, why is it called that? And then, the
Yeah.
floodgates open and you're able to kind of start conversation with it.
Oh, I'm so glad. You just
Yeah.
made my whole day, Jessica. Okay, WellSpan. I
Yes.
love that. I always hear lifespan and I hear health span. And then I
Yeah.
hear you just say WellSpan. WellSpan,
Yeah.
right? Did I say wealth? I meant wealth.
Yeah, no, you said WellSpan. So
Okay.
WellSpan, I mean, it's really one of kind of under the umbrella of lifespan and health span. But when you think of wellness, right? Wellness really can be emotional wellness, it can be mental wellness, physical wellness, nutritional wellness, all of the above. So it really has to be like this kind of shared pie of how much you're putting in and what you're getting back.
Mm,
And so WellSpan is over the course of our lives, like how much are you putting into that pot of all those individual kind of composites of wellness
yeah,
in order to get the best outcome for yourself? Because it's going to look different for everybody,
yeah,
right?
right.
And so as we start to age, especially for women, because we typically, and we do live longer than men, but we typically live that in poorer health. So in that is not just again the physical health. Everything is
Mm,
not just about like and I think that's in medicine what we have kind of focused on.
mm-hmm.
And so as we kind of draw back away from that, and as you start to see things like functional medicine, longevity medicine, and then putting on top of that menopause, is how do we contort this all again with no judgment of how someone's going to enter into this well-span stage of their
Mm,
life, because they really have to figure it out for themselves, what
mm-hmm.
one, what it means to them, and two, what are all the composites and components of that, which differ for everyone. And so for me, for example, I felt that a lot of my patients, including myself, as we start to go through health, maybe differences or feelings or conditions or diagnoses, a lot of times we are not attributing our emotional kind of capacity and resilience as we're going through this.
Mm,
And a lot of times that can either make your kind of condition in life where you are better or worse.
right.
And a lot of times we numb or we kind of suppress or we don't talk about the emotional aspect of it. But what we have seen in mind body connection is that there is such a direct connect between where we are in mindset and what our body is able to do. They have so much data on this. So, for example, for hospitals that, like in the cancer units where they have musical therapy, right?
Yeah.
And musical therapy has been shown to, or if they have like pets, they bring in pets for the day to, to go around on
Mm-hmm.
the ward. This categorically does help with the kind of vibrance or the cancer patients and their outcomes and what they're able to do. So there really is a lot that has to do with what goes in here and how it computes to the body and what that disease process can do. So I think that it's kind of like a untouched part of medicine, and especially menopause, what we're seeing now, that's really what I like am so passionate about, is allowing people to understand that this transition, a lot of women are leaving behind someone that they are no longer, right?
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
so there is an emotional kind of transference and grief that you have to leave behind the
Right.
body that was the menstruating part, whether you liked it or not. It's not a part of you
Right.
anymore, right?
My mom
The
would call her a friend. You know, she liked
right.
having her friend every month because it was her personal time,
Yeah,
to slow down and be quiet. So she
right.
was sad about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Me, not so
leave that
much.
behind. Your body looks different, the way
Yeah.
you respond, who you are. So all of that really does have an emotional aspect of that. And I hope that as we get further into menopause and perimenopausal medicine, that we actually take some time to ensure that as we go into this next transition, the leaving behind portion
Mm,
of it is dealt with
mm.
properly.
I love that. when I used to coach women entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
we would talk a lot about identity changing, and it's
Yes.
very similar
Yeah.
that to be the entrepreneur that you want to be, you have to be willing to shed that skin, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a snake. And actually, it sheds on its own, but
Mm-hmm.
we're not always willing to let go of that last little bit, and then we try to get back in the skin that you've actually already shed, and it doesn't
Yeah.
fit
It
anymore.
doesn't
But
fit.
we don't know, we're not used to the feeling
Mm-hmm.
without it, and so that gap between who you were and who you are is very uncomfortable, and we don't talk about
People
that in
do
terms of
not like being
menopausal
uncomfortable
transition.
at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's good stuff in the gap, but it's better if you know you're in the gap than like
Yeah.
what the heck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
mm, so good. I love it. And your practice, you have a yoga studio,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. When I left, so I was in academic medicine for, like a good 15 years, a ton of surgery. That is my jam. I will always love, being a minimally invasive surgeon. Is I realized again, listening to women, right? So listening to them, I heard through their stories what was going on in their personal life, their careers, their emotional life had so much more to do with them as a being.
mm,
And I wanted to connect with them on that level. And also because there is a lot of data on like complementary alternative forms of medicine, how yoga can play a part in mind body connection, acupuncture, we have an acupuncturist,
mm,
massage therapy. Was that the best way that I can expose or even like introduce that to my patients was to have it there.
wow.
And I think one of the ways I remember this was kind of like my last year in academics. I had a patient because I was always talking to patients about yoga or pelvic physical therapy or acupuncture. And she was like, yes, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go try yoga. And then she wrote me back in the portal and she goes, but what studio do I go to? And then it hit me and I was like, well, how am I going to preach this message if like every patient lives somewhere different? And I remember looking like in her zip code, and that's when I was just like, this could work, but it could work better if I was able to provide them with the way to do that. And that's kind of how that kind of started growing there. And then it just kept growing and growing.
That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
that. It's a holistic approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
Absolutely.
what a concept. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's talk about our friends protein and
Yeah.
fiber,
Yeah.
because I heard you say something about protein that I have not heard anyone else
Mhm.
say, and it was about the value of protein and muscle absorbing glucose. Did I mix
Yes.
that up?
No, you said it
Yeah.
correctly.
Okay.
So our protein, it's kind of like a math equation, which I'm horrible at math, but I'll explain this as,
You're a
as well as I can.
doctor. How did you get through
I
med
did
school?
That's why I didn't do anesthesia. I was like, no, too many
Oh,
numbers here.
that's funny.
So when you think of protein, we start to lose muscle in our late 30s into our 40s. But what our body uses as fuel to help build muscle is protein. So what happens is this math equation, if you have something declining, you have to find something to fix the equation back to equilibrium by increasing it, right?
Mhm.
So if our muscle mass is already biologically going to decrease over a course of time and continue into until we die, is I can do two things to either kind of help that equation get back to equilibrium is to one, improve my muscle mass, which is where we get the weight training. That's the whole
Right,
messaging of weight training.
right.
And then also I have to increase the protein so that I'm increasing the amount of fuel that my body can use for the muscle building. So the problem with all of that is our bodies are also going through a shift with insulin glucose. And our bodies just don't metabolize glucose as well. It doesn't shuttle it to where it needs to go as fuel as well. So it sits around. And that's where we start to see our diabetes, insulin resistance, obesity start to increase. But muscle, especially our larger muscles like our quadriceps, our hamstrings, are the muscles in general the biggest absorber of glucose. And so if our muscles decreasing, can't absorb glucose as well because there's not a lot of it, and we're not building our muscle back, then that already is going to potentiate the amount of glucose that's around just sitting there. And
Yeah.
that's what creates these shifts over time with the hormone shift in the insulin and glucose. And all of a sudden, our bodies are like, Sugar overload. I don't even know what to do with it. Muscle's not around to absorb it. And we haven't really made that shift over time to accommodate these biological processes that go on. So, yes, protein
Mm,
is going to be one of those things that we absolutely need. And we're also in a westernized diet, quite frankly. Our protein intake is very low. And for
right,
women, they've never really made the best recommendations for women as far as what we need in protein over time.
right.
So that's why protein is so very essential in how we look at our diet that's going to build the muscle in addition to weight training.
I love that so much. I don't really hear people talking about that. Like I said, I've never heard anyone talk about muscle absorbing glucose.
Yes.
And if you
Hmm.
got all that glucose floating around with nowhere to go, that's what it, round ends up around our belly and
Yes.
visceral fat.
Yep.
And so not only, of course, mobility, which we can touch on too, of staying strong so we don't
Yeah.
fall. That's why it's so important. And building muscle and taking in protein so we can feed the
Yeah.
muscle, it has all these purposes. Because I know we complain about, oh, I can't get in my protein. It's so hard. Actually, once you get it down, you have to give yourself the
Yeah.
grace. And I call it just waste a little money
I'm still
trying
having grace
different
with myself
things.
because my protein, like as far as like intake, is not what it should be ideally. But I know I have a goal. And so I give myself grace there. And I'm like, okay, I know when I do eat my food, I look at labels to being like how much protein I'm getting. But it is hard. It's not easy.
Okay, so are you? I'm getting ready. My coaching hat just went on. All
Yes.
right. So, are you? Can you eat dairy?
Oof.
Mm,
No,
that's the hard
it
part.
is. It's so hard. Now I can eat
Okay.
certain cheeses, but like the whole milk and like it's
Yogurt
just
and cottage cheese are not your friend.
cottage cheese I can do, but not like all the time.
Hmm.
Eggs is where I'm like, gotcha. Eggs
Okay, so
eggs
egg
are fine.
whites, right? Because there's
Yes.
hardly any protein in one little
It,
egg.
yes.
Only
So
six,
egg whites
six grams.
and then I will
So
put some a little bit of yolk in there because I do love
yeah,
I love yolk. But egg whites, where I really get my protein are my meats. And then also what is beans?
and beans. Yes,
Yes.
great. And that's where you get a lot of fiber
That's
also.
where I like that's where I'll like this is when I know I can get it. But I do have bars that have protein.
To fill in.
Yeah,
Yes,
to
there's
fill in.
always bars and powder,
Yes.
right? And if that's what you have to go to get it,
Mm-hmm.
then do it. And I love oatmeal with a scoop of
Ooh,
protein powder. And
yeah.
then I also put Greek yogurt, and that is 35, 40 grams of protein right out of the gate. And so what I tell women who really struggle
Yeah.
with protein, and you can't eat, dairy is the easiest way. Yogurt and
Mm-hmm.
cottage cheese, very low calorie, very satiating, high protein. But if you can't do that, whatever meat you're eating, eat more of it. Just
Yeah.
eat more of whatever you're eating because that it keeps us so full and satisfied
Yes.
versus thinking I have to eat all day, all these different protein. Like, oh, forget that. That's just
I
annoying.
will definitely like my meats are where I am and then beans. So I will have a meal that may just have like high quality protein and meat, whether that's tuna, whether that's with like a really well sourced like source of beef, like from farmers market. Like I'm very particular about that.
Hmm.
Or turkey. And then I'll have beans and then I'll have like vegetable. And
Yes.
that is like one of my game changer meals at
Mhm.
lunchtime is that. Yeah.
Tuna is a great go-to
Love tuna.
for I always remind women prep your protein. Prep
Yes.
your protein because if you have to cook it, especially if you're going turning to meat to
Yes.
eat it, forget it.
Yeah.
It's just too much. Never mind, I'll just have the beans, and that's
Exactly.
good, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
So prep your protein so you can always grab that chicken out of the fridge. Or I
Uh-huh.
make 2 pounds of ground turkey every weekend, so
Yeah.
that lasts for a while. So you can do easy things. Have your
Yeah.
salmon. Okay, I'm finished. I'm finished with
I
that
love it
now.
though. But these are the conversations that like we should be having is like inspiring others. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What else? What other things can I add?
Yeah.
That's
And it,
really
it,
like
it
that's a
takes
part of growth.
time. It
Yeah,
just takes time, and
it
you have to
does.
be willing to try things and, like, ooh, that was
Mm-hmm.
yucky. Give it to
Right.
somebody else or throw it out until you
Until
find the things
you
that you
find your
like.
jam. Yeah.
Yeah, and try to stick to similar breakfasts and lunches, and then you can be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more creative with
Yeah.
dinner, but you just
Yeah.
know you're locking it in. Okay, so fiber in the gut biome. Let's,
Yes, I'm huge on the gut microbiome because there is a significant shift when estrogen starts to decline and doesn't really create or help create rather the intestinal mucosal barrier. And so I always say the best way to think of like your gut and how it kind of filtrates and why it's so important. One, and I remember this from surgery when I would be in people's abdomen, the intestines take up a lot of space. Like it's really long. There's a lot of, it's so much. Like when it comes out when we're doing C-sections, we're like, we gotta get it back in. It's so much. Is that if you think of like a on a window, kind of like the screen, like back in the day when it was so fine, and if something rains, like not much gets in,
yeah.
right? Is that over time, those small little holes start to get bigger. And
Mm.
so things that should be staying in are coming out and vice versa.
That leaky gut,
Yeah.
when you get leaky gut, okay.
Yeah. And I know people hate that term, but that's kind of like the best way to like depict it so people understand that nutrients that really should be staying in
Mhm.
are not staying in, and then toxins that really were supposed to be detoxified and taken out now might be getting in. But the gut health kind of like phenomenon in which they're very early and it's fascinating science is now that it's kind of like our second brain, right? It holds a lot of how our hormones respond. It interacts with your actual brain and how they carry the messages between each other. And so they have seen that people who may have mental health issues like with depression, anxiety, if they're able to adjust their diet and really fix their microbiome, they actually can help offset some of those things that they're having with their mental health. And so all of this really plays a significant change that occurs when we're going through menopause. Is that's why it's so important to use exactly what you said, nutrition, as one of those frameworks to help the gut microbiome in helping it restore its intestinal barrier and not allowing it to do the thing that it's going to do if we don't fix our diet and also decrease in our estrogen. And so one of the things that I do incorporate, I love incorporating fermented foods into my diet in addition to fiber, but fermented foods, love that, really
Prebiotics.
creating that like really intense healthy microbiome with the bacteria that it
Mm.
provides.
Like sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut, I love fermented like vegetables. So like your carrots, cauliflowers, string
Mm.
beans, your red onions. I always top my salads with fermented foods.
So pickled,
Kombucha.
yeah.
Yes, kombucha is a good part of that kind of genre of food. But I do love fermented foods.
Are you, is it because you're Southern?
No, I just have this liking for it. I actually think that when I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, is where I got introduced to it. And I was like, well, this is kind of really fascinating. And ever since then, I've been like, I like fermented foods.
Fermented foods. I say that my family is originally, I'm a California girl, but my
Yeah.
parents' family, Louisiana, and everything is pickled,
Yes.
pickled, pickled. And who knew,
Yes.
right? So
Exactly.
that's
So that's a
awesome.
good way. And then fiber, like you said, fiber again is one of those parts of your gut health that is so important because it really restructures it's going to pull the things that are not supposed to be
Mm.
in your gut and helping it transfer out of it. And then it also helps with obviously our lipid levels,
Mm.
right? So again, the things that should be coming out, the good things that should be in our body stays, the things that need to come out, and that's why you'll start to see a change in your lipid
Mm.
profile, typically with women as they're going through menopause. Is that, again, there's this shift in what is shuttling things out and staying in does take
Yes.
kind of a hit. And so it's important that we look at those levels when we go to the doctor, increasing fiber into our diet. But also, when you increase fiber, you need to make sure that you're increasing your hydration. And that
Right.
means increasing your water intake as well.
So many things. And these are so important as more and more midlife
Hmm.
women are utilizing tools like GLP-1s
Yep.
along with hormone replacement.
Yep.
And I hear that I eat your bars because constipation is
Yeah.
real and you need to make things, keep things moving. So this is just all these different tools in our toolkit as we go through our health span, lifespan, well span,
Hmm.
and to keep us feeling good. Or
Yes.
give women like
The
to say, I
goal
want
is to feel good, right?
right,
All over. That's the well
vibrant,
span.
your word,
Yes,
right?
feeling good all over. Well
Vibrant.
span.
Okay, I know I can't keep you all day, but how about a few tips I know you have up your
Yes.
sleeve that you might want to share to help women
I would
transition?
say one of my first tips is weight training
Yes.
slash resistance
Okay.
training. And the reason I say that is one, it takes a while to incorporate it into our lifestyle, right? And what fits well, what works well for you. But when I truly think of WellSpan and how do I want to live at 80, 90, I would assume everyone would say, I want to be living, thriving, and being able to do some of the things that I do now.
Right.
The way to do that, that you have control over, that you kind of have autonomy to kind of fit that into your life to build for later, and it's an investment, is weight training slash resistance training, because there's different forms. The next thing that I would say is nutrition is the framework of our lives. Nutrition is
Mm,
medicine. And that's why I love what you've been able to do with the bar. And I think that people, if we stay curious in nutrition and see how it really kind of goes down to a cellular level
mm,
of our bodies and how our bodies are able to function. Our bodies are beautiful machines. And
mhm.
one of the best ways that we can treat it well is what we put into our body. And so that's going to be through nutrition. And the last thing that I would say is obviously hormone replacement therapy. I think there's so much benefit to it. I do think without judgment, people should be curious about what their body had been doing with hormones, right?
Mhm.
So it's not a drug. A hormone is something that your body uses as a chemical messenger. But as we transition into menopause, your body starts to decline in those hormones. So I think when we look at it for symptom resolution, I always compartmentalize it: symptom resolution and
Mm,
longevity. There are different reasons on why someone might start, what they might start on, because again, it should be a beautiful blend when you talk to a provider and an expert on what works best for you. And then sitting and deciding, is this something that I want to do? And I think that it should be a continuous conversation. It should never be when I walk in somewhere, they're like, here are the three that you can take. This is how I think you should take it. And then, like, by the time you leave, you're like, should have an answer. I always say, this is not the time to answer. I want you to sit and think how this would be for your life. And then you come back and have more questions and we have a continuous conversation about it.
mm.
But
I
those are
love
my
that.
three things.
That's beautiful. And the fact that you don't rush to say, okay, do this, this, and this, versus letting women sit with their own
Hmm.
intuition,
Yeah.
and then come back for your expert opinion and
Yeah.
then make decisions from there.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing because most women don't have that option. They don't have the option through their own medical
Mhm.
practice, through their doctor,
Right.
and the space that gives a woman when she's already not feeling good,
Right.
is so empowering. So I love that. And do you do telemedicine
I
also, or do they need to
do.
go? Oh, you do.
I do telemedicine. And so I would love if anyone's watching this, that you can contact my practice, Sanctum Med and Wellness. We could put those in the notes. We would love to see you because what we have is we have a functional nutritionist. We have what my my women's health nurse practitioner. We have myself. And so it all really, again, blends together. And it's never just one thing. I will always say that it's the beauty of the blends. It's never just one thing. And our life is really to be cherished and honored. And the way to do that is to be guided through it and not told what to do.
Mm, what a gift. What a gift. Thank you for that. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
You are out
Really?
there all on all the ways, all the places, sharing the good
Yes,
message
it
of
has to
helping
be
women feel
shared.
good.
It really
Yeah.
has to be shared. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that we, over the last year have been able to connect more because I look forward to doing more with you. And I just think you're like a beautiful spirit. I
Mm,
really do.
I feel the same. I'm so glad. It was so fun to have lunch and
Yes,
have all the chitty chitty
it
chat.
was. It was like the board meeting of all board meetings.
I love it. More, please. More,
Yes.
please. Okay. I know everyone needs to read the book.
Yeah.
Even if you've read a book, you need to get another one so you can gift it. Hold it on, so cute. Um, and so, all the best booksellers on your website. Where can they find more about you and the
Yes.
book and all the things?
All the things on the book, you can go to Barnes and Noble, you can go to Amazon and get Generation M. And then for me, following me on social, I'm the same on Instagram and TikTok. which is Jessica Shepherd, MD. That's Shepherd. A lot of people forget the H. MD. And then also on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is like a cool place to kind of like have some dialogue as well. I've been kind of seeing more conversations on menopause and longevity there. So yes,
Yes.
that's where you'll find me.
And so follow her in all the places and then engage in your favorite platform. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, LinkedIn is an incredible
Yeah.
place to talk about menopause. We have
Mhm.
so many conversations. I have so many women reaching out, maybe because it's a little above the noise. And
Yeah. Yep.
and
I
women,
agree.
especially women in corporate life,
Hmm.
struggling in silence, can't really talk
Yeah.
about it. And so, yeah, I love that you brought that up. I'm so glad. Well, I'm so grateful that you're here.
Yes.
Keep doing your magic.
Thank
Your
you.
Instagram is so inspiring. And by the way, my trainer is on here, Coach Miriam Jenkins. She is an international bodybuilder pro. I always mix up the thing. IFBB pro, aka badass. She has a bodybuilding competition this
Really?
weekend. Yeah, so I know she was like giving you the about the strength training,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
things.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, it's never too late to do
Never
something
too late.
amazing. And she's in
Absolutely.
her mid 50s also. So, all right, keep doing your
Thank
magic, to be
thank you.
continued. And I hope to see you in
Yes.
person soon.
Very
All
soon.
right,
Okay.
be
Bye,
well. Happy
everyone.
summer. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.